The courtroom was unnervingly quiet, a silence so profound it seemed to echo the weight of what was to come. All eyes were on Sophia, a woman whose calm exterior belied the storm raging within. She stood in the center of the room, her head held high, her gaze unflinching as she uttered four simple but powerful words, "I call my witness." As the door creaked open, every head turned in unison. Among the crowd, Ethan, her husband of over a decade, froze. His confidence, once unshakable, faltered. A wave of unease washed over his face as he caught sight of the person entering the courtroom. It was a moment of reckoning he never anticipated. A moment that threatened to expose the secrets he had buried so deeply. Just days ago, Sophia's life appeared perfect. A devoted mother and a steadfast partner, she had built a life of stability, love, and trust, or so she thought. Yet, even the strongest foundations can crack when deception seeps in. Sophia's journey is not just one of betrayal. It's a story about resilience, courage, and the search for truth when the world you knew collapses. This story will take you through a roller coaster of emotions, heartbreak, anger, and ultimately triumph. As Sophia fights for what matters most, her children, her dignity, and a future built on truth. If you've ever faced life's unexpected trials and wondered how to rise above them, Sophia's story will inspire you to find strength within. Don't miss out on stories that stir the soul and ignite the spirit. Subscribe to our channel for more tales of resilience, love, and the unyielding power of the human heart. Sophia had always believed in the strength of her marriage. She and Ethan had weathered storms before, or so she thought. But illusions have a way of crumbling when faced with undeniable truth. That truth revealed itself on a crisp autumn afternoon when Sophia's world unraveled. Driving past Ethan's office after picking up their son Daniel from preschool, Sophia spotted a woman, a striking figure in a sleek black dress, standing close to Ethan. She might have dismissed it as an ordinary conversation, but then the woman leaned in, brushing her lips against his. Ethan didn't step back. Instead, he smiled, the kind of smile that once belonged only to her. Sophia's heart raced, her hands gripping the steering wheel as though it could anchor her to reality. Her mind screamed in protest, "No, this can't be happening. This isn't Ethan." Yet the scene before her offered no refuge, no excuse plausible enough to explain away the betrayal. That evening, Sophia replayed the image in her mind. A haunting reel of disbelief and devastation. She couldn't focus on dinner, her children's chatter, or the mundane rhythm of the day. The kiss wasn't just an act of infidelity. It was the manifestation of her deepest fears, that everything she had built with Ethan, the family she cherished, was a lie. She didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she watched him, searching for cracks in his facade. Ethan came home late that night, offering a half-hearted excuse about a last-minute meeting. Sophia nodded, her stomach churning, and quietly tucked Daniel into bed. She knew she had to act, but not before she pieced together the truth. The following day, Sophia made a decision. She needed answers, no matter how much they might hurt. After dropping her daughter Emma at school and leaving Daniel with a neighbor, she drove to Ethan's office. Her heart pounded as she parked across the street, watching the entrance like a detective on a stakeout. Hours passed, and then she saw her, the same woman from the day before. This time, they walked out together, laughing as they strolled to a nearby cafe. Sophia felt her chest tighten, anger simmering just beneath the surface. Yet she held herself together, taking photos from her phone as evidence. She didn't need an explanation from Ethan now. She needed the truth, and she would get it from him tonight. That evening, the tension in their home was palpable. After the children were asleep, Sophia called Ethan into the living room. She sat on the couch, her arms crossed, her gaze sharp and unyielding. "We need to talk," she said, her voice calm but firm. Ethan paused, a flicker of guilt crossing his face before he masked it with feigned confusion. "What's wrong?" "I saw you today," Sophia began, her words cutting through the air like a blade. "I saw you with her. Outside your office. Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about." For a moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think," he started. But Sophia cut him off. Don't lie to me, Ethan. I saw her kiss you. I saw you smile. How long has this been going on? He hesitated, and that hesitation was all the confirmation Sophia needed. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. 6 months. The confession hit her like a physical blow, but Ethan wasn't finished. There's something else, he said, his tone heavy with regret. She's pregnant. Sophia's world crumbled. The air seemed to leave the room, and she gripped the edge of the couch to steady herself. Pregnant, she echoed, her voice trembling with disbelief. How could you do this to me? To us? To our children? I didn't mean for this to happen, Ethan said weakly. I love you, Sophia. I don't want to lose our family. But his words felt hollow, meaningless. Sophia stood, her resolve hardening. You destroyed our family the moment you decided she was worth more than what we had. I'll be filing for divorce. Ethan's expression darkened, his voice cold. If you do, I'll make sure you get nothing. The house, the kids, they'll be mine. Sophia's fury ignited. Try me, she said, her voice steady with determination. That night, as Ethan slept in the guest room, Sophia lay awake, her mind racing. She knew the road ahead would be long and arduous, but one thing was clear. She wouldn't let him take her children or her dignity. She would fight for what was rightfully hers. The days that followed were a whirlwind of planning and quiet preparation. Sophia understood one thing above all else. Her children, Emma and Daniel, were her priority. She needed to protect them from the storm brewing within their family. Her heartbreak could wait. Her anger could simmer. For now, her focus was ensuring their safety and stability. Sophia began by gathering the essentials. While Ethan was at work, she packed a small suitcase with clothes for herself and the kids. She collected important documents, birth certificates, financial records, and anything that might prove useful in the legal battle she knew was inevitable. Her hands trembled as she tucked away family photos, knowing the home they once shared would soon be a battleground. After securing a small rental apartment near Emma's school, she sat Emma and Daniel down to explain, as gently as she could, the changes ahead. Emma, her curious and perceptive 8-year-old, immediately sensed the gravity of the situation. Mom, why are we moving? Did something happen? Emma asked, her wide eyes searching Sophia's face. Sophia knelt before her, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. Sweetheart, sometimes families need to make changes to be happier. This new place will be our home, just for us. It's going to be cozy and full of love, just like always. Emma nodded slowly, her lips pressing into a determined line. Will Dad come with us? Sophia hesitated, her heart aching. No, honey, Dad will stay here, but he'll still see you and Daniel. This is just something I need to do for us. Daniel, too young to understand the full implications, clutched his stuffed bear and asked, Will there be a playground? Sophia forced a smile. Yes, there's a wonderful playground right outside. You'll love it. The move happened quickly and quietly. Sophia enlisted the help of a trusted friend, who drove her and the kids to their new apartment while Ethan was away. As she unlocked the door to their modest 2-bedroom home, she exhaled for the first time in days. The walls were bare, and the furniture was sparse, but the space felt like a sanctuary, a place where they could start over. That night, as the children slept, Sophia sat on the floor of her new living room, surrounded by unpacked boxes. She felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She wasn't just leaving Ethan. She was leaving behind the life she had built, the dreams they once shared. But as tears welled in her eyes, she reminded herself of why she had done this. For Emma, for Daniel, and for the dignity Ethan had stripped from her. Sophia knew she couldn't face this battle alone. Ethan was cunning, well-connected, and financially powerful. If she was going to protect her children and secure their future, she needed someone on her side. Someone who could fight for her when she felt too weak to fight for herself. A friend recommended David Hartman, a seasoned family attorney with a reputation for tenacity and compassion. On the day of their first meeting, Sophia felt a mix of nerves and determination. She arrived at his office clutching a folder of documents, her heart pounding as she was ushered into a warm, sunlit room. David greeted her with a firm handshake and a reassuring smile. Sophia, I've read a bit about your situation. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me everything." For the next hour, Sophia recounted the events leading up to her decision to leave Ethan. She spoke of the infidelity, the threats, and her fears for the custody battle ahead. David listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. His calm demeanor put her at ease, even as the enormity of her situation threatened to overwhelm her. "You've made the right choice by leaving," David said finally. "But this won't be easy. Ethan has financial resources and connections that he'll likely use to his advantage. We'll need to build a strong case to ensure you keep custody of the children and secure your share of the marital assets." Sophia nodded, her resolve hardening. "I'll do whatever it takes. My children are my whole world." Over the next few weeks, David and Sophia worked tirelessly to prepare for the legal battle ahead. She provided evidence of Ethan's infidelity, photos, text messages, and even emails she had uncovered. They documented her role as the primary caregiver, her involvement in Emma and Daniel's education, and her management of the household finances. David also dug deeper into Ethan's financial records, uncovering a trail of questionable transactions. It became clear that Ethan had been funneling money to his mistress, Claire, under the guise of business expenses. This revelation not only bolstered Sophia's case, but also revealed a pattern of deceit that could sway the court in her favor. Sophia juggled her legal preparations with the demands of her new life. She found a part-time job to support her family, ensuring that Emma and Daniel never felt the strain of their changing circumstances. She leaned on her small but steadfast circle of friends, who reminded her of her strength when doubt crept in. The day of the first custody hearing loomed closer, and Sophia prepared herself for the battle ahead. She wasn't just fighting for her children's future. She was fighting to reclaim her dignity and rebuild a life free from betrayal. As she tucked Emma and Daniel into bed the night before the hearing, she kissed their foreheads and whispered a promise. "Mommy's going to make everything better. I won't let you down." The day of the first custody hearing arrived with a weight that seemed to press down on Sophia's chest. She dressed carefully that morning, choosing a modest navy dress that conveyed both strength and humility. Emma and Daniel were her motivation, their faces the last thing she saw in her mind's eye as she stepped into the courtroom. Ethan was already there, seated at a polished wooden table beside his attorney. His expression was unreadable, though his fingers tapped nervously against the armrest of his chair. Beside him sat Claire, the woman who had shattered Sophia's world. Dressed immaculately, Claire seemed entirely at ease, as though the hearing was just another item on her social calendar. Sophia took her seat beside David, who offered a calm, reassuring nod. "We're ready," he whispered. His confidence buoyed her, though her heart still pounded as the judge entered the room. Ethan's attorney was the first to speak, painting a picture of Ethan as a devoted father and successful provider. His arguments leaned heavily on Ethan's financial stability, suggesting that his ability to maintain the family's lifestyle made him the better custodial parent. The implication was clear. Sophia, with her modest income and new apartment, couldn't offer the same level of stability. David rose to counter these claims, his voice steady and unwavering. "Your Honor," he began, "this case is not about financial resources. It's about the well-being of two young children. Sophia Carter has been their primary caregiver since birth. She has nurtured them, guided them, and provided a loving, stable home. To suggest that monetary wealth outweighs the value of her care is to ignore the very essence of parenting." He presented evidence meticulously. School records showing Sophia's involvement in Emma's education, testimony from neighbors who vouched for her dedication, and documentation of her financial sacrifices to ensure her children never went without. Finally, David brought out the evidence of Ethan's infidelity and financial misconduct. "Your Honor," David said, his tone measured but firm, "Ethan Carter has prioritized his own desires over the well-being of his family. He has funneled money away from the household under the guise of business expenses, funding a relationship outside his marriage. This behavior demonstrates a lack of judgment and responsibility that cannot be ignored." The judge reviewed the evidence carefully, his expression stern. "Mr. Carter," he said, addressing Ethan directly, "you claim to prioritize your children, yet your actions suggest otherwise. Introducing a third party into their lives without regard for their stability is concerning. For now, custody will remain with Mrs. Carter. Mr. Carter, you will have supervised visitation rights. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Relief washed over her, and tears threatened to spill as she clutched David's hand. She had won the first battle. The victory in the custody hearing brought Sophia a sense of validation, but the fight was far from over. The next hurdle was the division of property, a legal and emotional battlefield that dredged up memories of the life she and Ethan had built together. At the center of the dispute was the family home, a sprawling suburban house where Emma and Daniel had taken their first steps, celebrated birthdays, and made countless memories. Ethan argued that as the primary earner, he was entitled to keep the house. To him, it was an asset. To Sophia, it was a sanctuary, one she had poured her heart into making a home. David strategized carefully, emphasizing Sophia's contributions to the family, not just financially but emotionally and logistically. Sophia sacrificed career advancement to prioritize her children, he told her one evening as they prepared for the hearing. That's not just commendable, it's legally significant. On the day of the property hearing, the courtroom felt different. There was less tension, but the stakes were just as high. Both sides presented their arguments. Ethan's attorney leaned heavily on the notion of financial contribution, presenting spreadsheets that highlighted Ethan's income and mortgage payments. David countered with precision. Your Honor, financial contributions are only part of the equation. Sophia Carter's role in maintaining the household and raising their children has been invaluable. She created a nurturing environment that allowed this family to thrive. To disregard, that is to devalue the essence of partnership. Then came the turning point. David presented evidence of Ethan's financial misconduct, bank statements that showed substantial funds transferred to Claire, labeled as business expenses. The revelation caused a murmur to ripple through the courtroom. Ethan's attorney faltered, while Ethan himself turned pale. The judge's ruling was clear and decisive. Given the evidence presented, the court finds that Mrs. Carter's contributions to the household were significant and that Mr. Carter's financial misconduct raises questions about his judgment. The family home will be sold, and the proceeds will be divided equally. Additionally, Mrs. Carter's vehicle will remain in her possession for the sake of the children. Sophia exhaled, the weight of months of uncertainty lifting from her shoulders. She had fought not for the house itself, but for what it symbolized. Her ability to provide for her children and to reclaim her autonomy. While Sophia was carving out a path for her future, Ethan's world began to crumble. His double life, once carefully curated, was unraveling. At work, whispers of his personal indiscretions reached the wrong ears. Claire, his mistress, had grown increasingly vocal about her demands, pressuring Ethan to prioritize her and the unborn child. The balance Ethan had precariously maintained between his two lives was tipping, and he was losing control. One evening, as Ethan sat at his desk reviewing financial reports, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire. We need to talk. I can't keep living like this. Frustrated, Ethan replied curtly, not now. Claire's response was immediate. You promised me a future. If you can't deliver, don't expect me to stay. The next morning, Claire followed through on her threat. She showed up at Ethan's office, causing a scene that quickly attracted the attention of his colleagues. You lied to me, she yelled, her voice cutting through the hushed office environment. I gave up everything for you, and you can't even stand by me. Ethan tried to defuse the situation, but the damage was done. By the end of the day, his supervisor called him into a meeting. The allegations of financial misconduct, coupled with the very public spectacle Claire had created, left the company with little choice. Ethan was asked to resign to avoid further embarrassment. As Ethan packed up his office, the reality of his choices sank in. He had gambled everything: his marriage, his family, his career, and lost it all. Claire, true to her word, left him that same week, taking with her whatever illusions Ethan had left of a stable future. Meanwhile, David had filed a formal complaint with Ethan's employer, presenting evidence of the funds misappropriated to Claire. This ensured that even if Ethan tried to rebuild, the shadows of his actions would follow him. While Ethan's life descended into chaos, Sophia was rebuilding hers with determination and quiet strength. Her modest apartment, though far from the luxury of the family home, was quickly becoming a sanctuary. Every box unpacked, every picture hung, was a step toward reclaiming her identity. Emma and Daniel adapted quickly, their resilience a testament to Sophia's unwavering support. Emma filled her room with drawings and crafts, creating a whimsical space that reflected her vibrant personality. Daniel, with his beloved stuffed bear always in tow, found joy in the playground outside their apartment. For Sophia, these small victories, Emma's laughter, Daniel's bedtime giggles, were reminders of why she had fought so hard. Sophia's days were busy but fulfilling. She juggled her part-time job with translation projects that allowed her to work from home, giving her the flexibility to be there for her children. Her evenings were reserved for family time, cooking dinner together, helping Emma with homework, and reading bedtime stories to Daniel. David remained a steady presence in Sophia's life. What began as a professional relationship grew into a genuine friendship. He often stopped by the apartment with small gestures of kindness, a toy for Daniel, a book for Emma, or simply a listening ear for Sophia. Their conversations grew deeper, and Sophia found herself sharing thoughts and dreams she hadn't voiced in years. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Sophia's apartment, the city lights twinkling in the distance, David spoke with uncharacteristic vulnerability. "You've been through so much, Sophia, but you've handled it with grace and strength. Watching you fight for your children, for your happiness, it's been inspiring." Sophia smiled, the warmth of his words wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. "I couldn't have done it without your help, David. You reminded me of my own strength when I couldn't see it." As their bond deepened, David became more than a friend. He was a partner in every sense of the word, a steady hand guiding her through uncertainty, a voice of reason in moments of doubt, and a source of laughter and light in a life that had seen too much darkness. Weeks turned into months, and Sophia's life began to regain a sense of normalcy. Her small family flourished in their new apartment, which had transformed into a cozy sanctuary filled with warmth and love. Laughter once again echoed through the rooms as Emma and Daniel embraced their new lives with the innocence and resilience only children possess. David's presence became an integral part of their world. He was no longer just the dedicated attorney who had fought for Sophia's rights. He had become a trusted confidant and a source of comfort for the entire family. Whether it was helping Emma with her school projects or teaching Daniel how to fly a kite, David brought a sense of stability and joy that had been missing for far too long. One Saturday, David joined Sophia and the children for an afternoon in the park. The sunlight filtered through the trees as they ran across the grass, their laughter carrying in the breeze. Emma, ever perceptive, pulled Sophia aside, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Mom, do you think David could be part of our family someday?" Sophia knelt to meet her daughter's wide-eyed gaze, her heart swelling with emotion. "Would you like that, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Emma nodded enthusiastically. "He makes you happy. He makes all of us happy." That evening, after the children were asleep, Sophia and David sat together on the apartment balcony. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the faint hum of crickets filled the air. David turned to Sophia, his expression earnest. "Sophia, I've come to care about you and the kids more than I ever expected. You've shown incredible strength and love through everything you've endured, and I'd like to be a part of your journey. If you'll let me." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, but they were tears of gratitude and joy. "David, I never thought I could trust again, let alone love. But with you, it feels different, safe." "Right." David reached for her hand, his voice steady. "I want to build a future with you, Sophia, a future filled with hope, happiness, and the love you and your children deserve." Sophia nodded, her heart full. "I'd like that too," she whispered. With David now a central part of their lives, the bonds within Sophia's family grew stronger. He didn't try to replace what they had lost. Instead, he added something new, a quiet, steady presence that brought out the best in everyone. Emma adored him, often seeking his help with her school projects or sharing her wildest dreams about the future. Daniel, who had been wary at first, now idolized David, following him around and calling him my buddy. Together, They formed traditions that became the foundation of their new family. Friday movie nights, Saturday morning pancakes, and impromptu picnics at the park. One afternoon, as David helped Emma build a model volcano for her school science fair, she turned to him and said, "David, do you think our family is like a volcano?" David raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "How so, Emma?" "Well," she explained, "we went through a big eruption, like when everything falls apart, but then new things grow around the volcano. New flowers, new trees. Like us." Sophia, overhearing the conversation, felt her chest tighten with emotion. Emma's words were a reminder of how far they had come. Her children were thriving, and she was rediscovering parts of herself she thought she'd lost: her strength, her hope, and her capacity to love. As months passed, Sophia found herself relying on David not just as a partner, but as someone who understood her journey. They worked together to create a home filled with love and respect, teaching Emma and Daniel that even after loss, life could offer new beginnings. Life in Sophia's home took on a comforting rhythm, filled with moments of joy and quiet resilience. David's steady presence gave Sophia the confidence to dream again, not just for her children, but for herself. She began taking on more work, building a freelance career that allowed her to balance motherhood and professional growth. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. David, too, found fulfillment in their blossoming family dynamic. He had long since stopped seeing them as clients in need of his help. They were now his family. He took on the role naturally, helping Daniel learn to ride a bike in the apartment complex's small courtyard and listening intently as Emma explained her latest artistic inspirations. One evening, Sophia sat with David on the balcony as the children played inside. She gazed out at the twinkling city lights, her voice soft. "For so long, I didn't know if I'd ever feel whole again. I thought what Ethan did had broken something in me that couldn't be fixed." David turned to her, his eyes filled with quiet strength. "You weren't broken, Sophia. You were hurt, deeply. But the way you fought for yourself and your kids, that's not broken. That's courage." Sophia smiled, her heart swelling. "I couldn't have done it without you." David took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You and the kids are everything I've been looking for. I didn't think I'd find this kind of happiness again either, but here we are. And I'm not going anywhere." Their connection deepened with every shared moment, every late-night conversation, and every instance of laughter that echoed through the apartment. David had become a part of their lives in every way that mattered, but he wanted more. One Saturday, during their now weekly park outings, David knelt before Sophia with Emma and Daniel by his side. In his hand was a small velvet box. "Sophia," he began, his voice steady but emotional, "you've taught me what love, strength, and family truly mean. I love you and the kids with all my heart, and I want to spend the rest of my life building a future with you. Will you marry me?" Sophia's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. She looked at Emma and Daniel, whose faces were lit with excitement, and then back at David. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." The park erupted in cheers as Emma and Daniel wrapped their arms around them, their laughter blending with Sophia's joyful tears. In that moment, the pain of the past felt like a distant memory, replaced by the promise of a future filled with love, hope, and family. Sophia and David's wedding was a modest but beautiful affair, held in the garden of a family friend's home. Surrounded by a small circle of loved ones, they exchanged vows under a canopy of twinkling lights. Emma served as Sophia's flower girl, proudly scattering petals along the aisle, while Daniel, clutching a small pillow, carried the rings with the seriousness of a knight on a quest. As Sophia walked down the aisle, her heart swelled with emotion. She thought of how far she had come, from the pain and betrayal that once threatened to consume her to this moment of pure, unfiltered happiness. Her eyes met David's, and the love and gratitude in his gaze made her feel invincible. Their vows were heartfelt, a reflection of the journey they had taken together. "You've shown me what it means to love with strength and courage," David said. "I promise to honor the family we've built, to stand by you and the kids, and to face every challenge with you by my side." Sophia's voice trembled with emotion as she replied, "You've given me hope when I thought it was lost. I promise to love you and to continue building a life where our family can thrive, no matter what comes our way." When they kissed, the applause and cheers from their guests were drowned out by the sound of Emma and Daniel giggling as they threw flower petals into the air. It was a moment of pure joy, the kind that feels like the culmination of everything good in the world. The weeks following the wedding were filled with simple joys. Together, they created a new home, a place where laughter echoed in every corner, where love was present in every interaction. Sophia found herself embracing not only the life they were building, but also the person she had become. One evening, as they sat together around the dinner table, Emma spoke up. "Mom, do you think we're like the garden in the story you told me? The one that started out broken, but grew even better?" Sophia smiled, her heart full. "Yes, sweetheart, that's exactly what we are. And just like that garden, we're going to keep growing." David reached for Sophia's hand, and together they looked around the table at their children, their family, and the life they had created. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that made it beautiful.